Hello, everyone. Welcome to Commissioner Wilson's virtual office hours.
Yay! Welcome, welcome.
Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. I know. I am so excited about, I don't know, coming out of that January. It was really COVID was high, and I feel like right now our numbers are coming down. And Black History Month, we have a lot to celebrate here in Orange County. You know, just even we had our proclamation on Tuesday celebrating Black History Month, and great thing right here in our county. Carla Bell Johnson is our new deputy county administrator. Amazing Black woman, strong, brilliant, so proud
nice.
and grateful for her to be here. So yeah, we are moving along in that calendar.
Very good. Yeah, I can't believe it's already February 2022. It's crazy.
Yes.
Absolutely wild. Talking about Black History Month, we learned a little bit of history about the bus depot conversation that we were having today when we saw the updated presentation for the February 16th meeting.
Yeah, if you're an West Orange Times or Orange Times Observer subscriber, or if you live in Winter Garden, East Winter Garden, you've probably heard about this. And if not, we will be able to share as much as we get. The Orange Tech, or I guess it's Orange College now, it was originally actually the very first Black grade school in West Orange County. And you know, when it opened, it was a kindergarten, first grade through 12th, and it opened in the 50s. It is a historic place, and it evolved into being West Orange Tech. And of course, if you are familiar with what is now Orange College and the west side of town, it's really been the location for our youth to be able to go and get certifications and educational opportunities that they possibly weren't going to get on the regular track or on a track that was college bound, but they could really zoom their career right out of the opportunity at a public school. Right. And so we heard before actually the Winter Garden manager moved, that they were looking at it to make that location where Orange Tech is a bus depot, and it did raise alarms with some of the residents in that area. We have heard from actually residents all over East Winter Garden. We've heard from a nonprofit partner that's right across the street, and what they are saying is that this area really was a great place for a technical program. That there are industries coming and job opportunities coming, that we can train our own youth, that they can stay right here and be placed in these great job opportunities with those certifications. And I think that what happens is when we have a school district as large as our school district is here in Orange County, that they look at things logistically. They're looking at things in a formula, and where does it logistically make sense to put a bus depot? Well, that doesn't, at least for the residents and for my opinion, it doesn't account for the importance, the significant importance that the current use has, which is a training center, and what the historic significance was, which was our first Black grade school in West Orange County. And here we are, in Black History Month, where we want to honor the trailblazers, the people who really had to walk that lonely path during integration, pre-integration time. So we need to honor that historic site by making sure it doesn't turn into just some diesel outlet for the county. And I think Orange County School Board members are very aware out there of the concern. So there is a community meeting coming up. It's going to be on the 16th. At what time?
February 16th. It's going to be at 6 p.m.
February 16th, 6 p.m. And that's going to actually be right there at Orange Tech, at Orange College West Campus. So please join us. If you have any questions about it, we are going to continue to put out reminders and have information if we get any updated information. But I know at least with the citizens of Orange County in that area that have really been clear that they don't want to see something historic and something valuable turn into a storage facility for diesel fuel and for big emissions buses for the county. So, and I think that hopefully there's a compromise in there that will honor the history and that will be a benefit to the community. And I am pretty sure when we can all get our brains together, we can come up with those solutions.
Perfect. So I would recommend, if you want to be kept in the loop, definitely email district1@ocfl.net or go to nicolewilson.org to sign up on the homepage to the newsletter, where we do incredible weekly updates and that'll be included in our updates up until that day.
Yeah, and this was something that actually was scheduled for earlier in the year, and because of the COVID rates going up, was rescheduled so that we could do it in person. I think it's going to be really important to have that option for the community. And you know, I want to really thank board member Melissa Bird for including us in the conversation and making sure that we're getting information out to the community so it can be a community conversation that we can all really problem solve here together.
Right. Another quick update for important events. Tonight, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the JCC Rosen Center off of Apopka Vineland is the Florida Department of Transportation update on the I-4 Ultimate Project.
Yes, my Dr. Phillips friends.
Please.
So we have all been very frustrated with the Department of Transportation's communication about what's happening at Big Sand Lake interchange, at the Darrell Carter interchange, which things are responsible under DOT. And I said that very clearly when I was able to speak at a MetroPlan meeting where they presented about the I-4 Ultimate Project right there. And, you know, they set up a community meeting. They are trying to get information out, so we need to take advantage of that. I'm going to be there, and I hope that I see some of you. There is a virtual option also, and I know that they have on their sheet, their information sheet, there's also a project manager's email. If you have specific questions, please, please, please reach out to them, reach out to us, come to the meeting or do the meeting virtually, because this is our opportunity. Once they move past this on their list of places in Florida, you know, it's going to be hard to grab their attention again. So we've got their attention right now, and I hope to see you there.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about COVID updates. Sounds like there's actually some positive news.
Well, I think we can all agree Omicron was horrifying because all of a sudden we went from being at this 3% positivity rate across our community to shooting up to close to 40% positivity rate. And if you hadn't already been impacted by COVID, you have been by now, because I know there has been I don't think I have anybody in my life that hasn't been impacted either with a pretty severe illness in their family or themselves or a loss. And, you know, I want to express my thoughts, my, wishes for healing for people that are still recovering, and that we still have resources available. The numbers are looking better, but it doesn't mean that the effects of the pandemic aren't still being felt. We still have rental assistance. We still have vaccines being offered. We have a testing site that's still operating every single day. And I know there was, some time there that there was wraparound lines for that. I've heard now you can go right up, get your test, get your, if you need to get your booster, and just stay the course, right? Because now that we're watching these come back down, and knowing that our community now is past that 75% vaccinated to some level, oh, wouldn't it be nice if by spring we were just done, right? Like I just keep being, we gotta keep doing it and be kind to one another, be respectful. I know it's still very anxiety provoking. And like I said, there is a lot of healing.
Hug your teachers, hug your school board members. I think they've been pulled in this strange politicized war.
Yeah, send them
masks.
a note and just say, I support you. I support you. I know you love my child, and I thank you for that, because we are watching a mass exodus from the education world.
Right.
Because they've been yelled at from both sides. They've felt like they were under attack, and they are like, we just want to educate kids. Mm-hmm. And, and then we watch the Florida legislature. It's coming at them with, well, you can't say gay.
Right.
And you can't talk about historical racial divides. I just, as somebody that was called a snowflake at some point in my life, I'm like, really? We can't talk about actual history? Who's that going to hurt?
Here's a $25 raise.
Yeah, right. And that's what you get for having to make sure that you're censoring yourself every day is
right. And
an extra
cameras
couple
in the
cents.
classroom.
Right, an extra couple cents. So anyway, we support you, teachers, educators, and I just want you to know that your job is the most important job out there. And I am hopeful that someday the state will elect people that will go to Tallahassee that can actually make you a priority in every single way.
Right. So we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round so that the commissioner can get to the FDOT meeting. But let's talk about some fun updates before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the Board of County Commission meeting updates. So we had an opportunity last Friday to tour the Orlando Wetlands Park.
Oh my gosh. So yes, you know that we have a wacky idea of fun when we're like, we went to go to a water reclamation park and we loved it. Because if you haven't been to the Orlando Wetlands Park, you have to go. It is not what it sounds like. We obviously are very interested in water quality and water treatment. And the more we learn about our consumption of water in the state of Florida, the more we understand we have to get better at recycling water. It will be the key to keeping us alive and continuing to welcome people to our area. Well, we obviously, at our amazing water reclamation facilities, we're not quite getting the quality we need to get for it to be consumable or to be really put directly back into our waterways. And so looking at opportunities for how to mimic Mother Nature, because here's breaking news. Mother Nature knows how to do all this if we could just leave her alone. She knows how to scrub up that water because the right plantings, the right animals, the right systems will filter water. And so the Orlando Wetlands Park idea was born out of actually their original Orlando water reclamation facility was insufficient. And EPA came down, this was 25 years ago, and said you're not getting to where you need to be. And they decided to try to do it in what was a really ecologically beneficial way. And they had enough property in the right area to be able to pipe the reclaimed water in. Mm-hmm. So where it comes in and you can actually look down into where it comes in. It smells like a swimming pool because it's coming from a water treatment plant where they have treated it the way that we know how to treat it, with chemical chlorine and doing the filtration systems. But it's not ready to go back out into nature. And so what they do is they release it in this water in the wetlands park and let Mother Nature take her turn at it. And you get to see all those ecosystems doing their part. And a drop of water, starts out on one end of this piece of property, and 40 days, was it 40 days later?
Yeah, it's about 30 days.
A whole month and a little bit of change later, it exits and we got to see it on the other end, and it looks like Florida River. I mean, it is an amazing thing to see the bivalves that were right there, right where it releases. And, you can fake water quality by its kind of fake color or clarity, but when you see life in it, when you see fish and bivalves and the plants that require the right kind of nutrients, it's quality. So we had the best time. If you get a chance, if you like hiking, and this time of year especially where it's not hot outside, go check out that Orlando Wetlands Park, because we're going to continue to try to find ways to replicate that here in Orange County. It is right now for me, something that is really, really high on a priority list is to try to figure out places that we can replicate that. We may not be able to do it at that scale, but we were so grateful for the time of Mr. C's out there who told us that really what they're doing can be done on a smaller scale.
Yeah, and Commissioner and I looked at each other and we're like, why is it that we've been saying that since we got here, and people look at us like we don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, he really talked about even in these areas that we maybe can't afford a septic to sewer retrofit, that there can be very small versions of what they're doing there that would filter the water enough that the leaching wouldn't be an issue or as much of an issue. And to hear that gave me such great optimism, and I was so grateful for his time and for the operation out there. And we're gonna stay in touch with them and try to make sure we're partnering every chance we get.
Right, because the main point that I want to bring up, and I think there'll be opportunities to talk about this during the BCC updates, is that obviously changing any type of system or structure that the government has is a cost. But we're not properly quantifying the environmental costs of not properly treating our human waste. Right. And every retention pond is an opportunity that we're just pouring money into spraying and maintaining that otherwise could be a natural ecological system to cleanse water. Right,
and think about if from the get-go, right? So we think about storms, water's rolling off pavement, rolling off your house, rolling off your yards. If we don't pollute the water in that downline, then we actually have something that's going to be easier to recycle, right? If we know how to treat it in that downline as it's coming, through, then we have something better to recycle. And guess what? That's going to be life-sustaining when the aquifer is done. And so, making sure that we support those projects, big or small, and really holding up the examples of how to do it where Mother Nature is involved and not left out. We got to quit fighting her. She's going to win. She's going to win.
We'll talk about Mother Nature. So we'll definitely update you on more to come on the wetland conversation. But last week we had Valerie Anderson from Friends of Split Oak come and give us an update on Split Oak and what's happened since the overwhelming majority of voters voted to protect that forest. So maybe you wanted to give a little background on some updates.
Yeah, so I think the last time we talked, we let you know that it appeared that Florida Communities Trust, which is the state agency under Department of Environmental Protection at the state, was going to review the application that Orange County and Osceola County submitted to modify the protections at Split Oak. I have been really clear that that's not okay, that the voters said it's not okay, that that is public lands, and that the public spoke on this very clearly. On top of that, there were big legal issues with the way the application was formulated, the way that it was, the ask was, as in a linear easement, which is usually something like a power line or a drainage pipe, not a gigantic toll road that severs 160 acres. So there was a lot of issues with the application. There was a land swap, a land trade that would require them to go through a completely different process, and there was never any resolution as to why the application wasn't filed as a land exchange. So I want to thank the members of the public who reached out. There was, really an effort to try to communicate to the members of the Florida's Communities Trust Board and to people at the state that Orange County doesn't want to give away this land for free, doesn't want to turn their conservation land into a big gigantic toll road. And so I think they may have gotten the message, pulled it from the agenda. So, or it wasn't on the agenda, I should say, when the agenda came out. That doesn't mean that it's done. I think you got to make sure, I've learned now since we've been trying to really keep Split Oak off the chopping block since 2018, that it's not going to be safe until that road is built somewhere else. Because right. I still think that the powers that be who are going to profit from this understand that if they can figure out a workaround, it's still going to be the cheapest way they can do it. And so we're not going to let up on, we're going to be very diligent making sure that the agency that does the review, that we are in communication with them, the Friends of Split Oak team, Valerie's, really got a great group of people who care so much about this, who are really doing some heavy lifting and making sure to monitor agendas and try to communicate to members of the Environmental Protection Division at the state. If you are somebody who has, expertise in this field, or you are just interested, please let us know, because we are continuing to try to build that coalition in communicating the importance of public lands. And it's very different for me to talk about this because it's ours as the taxpayers. This was purchased by taxpayer money, held in trust, and to think about it being given away at the benefit really of private development interests that don't want to pay to go around so we can get to their development.
Right.
There's no public benefit, and especially not for Orange County residents. It's a toll road. And so, for Orange County residents to sacrifice something so precious, after having been really loud and clear
right.
in an election that they don't want it sacrificed, to me it's just wrong. So we're we're going to stay the course.
Especially since there were private landowners that were willing to sell, yes. that were able to provide an alternative.
Right. And that was one of the things we talked about last week a little bit, was that, as part of the requirements, the state of Florida to modify the protections of Split Oak, that if the applicant, Orange County, CFX, and Osceola County, if they want an application to go through, they have to show that there was no feasible alternative. And there was always a feasible alternative. Now it's gotten more difficult since 2018 because of the development out there. But in 2018, the people that were on the outside of the park were willing to sell their land. There was an absolute ability to go around. And so, this many years later, we're still saying go around. It's not yours. You shouldn't be able to put a road through it just because you think it's going to be cheaper.
Right. So stay tuned. Definitely sign up to become a member of Friends of Split Oak, or follow the Save Split Oak page or the Friends of Split Oak page if you want to stay in tune with that. Awesome. So let's talk about your Harbor House event, the Purple Door event that just went by.
I want to thank everybody at the Harbor House and everybody that works really on domestic violence issues, on domestic violence justice, because I
Right.
think that, the crossover there is profound.
The stories
The
are.
stories are heartbreaking,
Whoa.
and there's a lot of work to do still. In our society, there's a lot of stigma attached to reaching out for help. There's a lot of times the consequences, and I think the stories about people who are in domestic violence situations not seeking help, and they are themselves then victimized again by society for not having reached out for help. But sometimes it's because of something as basic as not wanting to give up their beloved pet. And you look at the Harbor House and what a place this is, that if you are willing and able to reach out for help, and they can help you there as a victim of domestic violence, and you say, I can't leave because I think he might hurt my dog.
Right.
That they have a shelter. They actually have the ability to take you with your beloved pet, and how life-saving that can be for you and your pet. And so just to hear the stories of courage, and it makes me feel very emotional. The survivor that got up and spoke is somebody who is a champion now for all of the ways that we can continue to try to help people that are in those situations. And domestic violence incidents just spiked during COVID because there was no break from an abuser, where in your normal cycle of social events and work life balance, that
Right.
You could sometimes get that break that gave you just some ability to come up for air and try to regroup, and here, in these very intense domestic violence situations, in households where both people were, or the person, the abuser, was locked in with the victim, things got very, very scary very quickly. And so hearing from survivors, really, I would say champions, because surviving kind of means you just eked over. This is somebody who came back and is thriving, that we heard from. And then also hearing from Officer Valencia's widow, and this was a police officer who actually was shot in the line of duty during a domestic, and this is the other ugly, sad part of domestic violence, is that law enforcement is sent into a set of circumstances that are so unpredictable and so volatile, and they are there trying to save the children. Officer Valencia was trying to save the children in that circumstance, and paid with his life. And so she was honored that day. His widow was honored also. And then, of course, our friend Dick Batchelor, who has spent his lifetime devoted to philanthropic causes, including victim services. And he comes to the county very often to give us updates on areas that we can improve and make sure that we are supporting victim services, whether it's in the courthouse, because it's a huge part of it. It's a criminal justice system, or by supporting legislation, funding wraparound services, whatever it is. So we are so grateful for those people in our community that get it, that have been part of finding solutions for this long. And it was, it's one of those events where you go and it's great to see people, but then when you hear about the work that's going on behind the scenes, you feel so grateful for it.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so let's do speed round.
Trying to get me out the door here.
Real quick, redistricting. You wanted to chat about
Yes.
that. We've brought it up, everyone.
Yes.
So I hope you all are plugged in.
Yes, so redistricting. So we are now at the point where it is back with the Board of County Commissioners. I want to thank the appointees from all over the county that sat on the redistricting committee and had to look at maps and look at maps and look at. It looks like we're down to 2 maps. We have been able to really go through with staff and with the people at the mapping software, identifying any kind of strange populations or anything that needs to be considered, so that we're drawing fair and equitable districts. As your District 1 Commissioner, I was really proud to hear that, for starters, we are, the biggest, the best. We know this, right? We're number 1. But the downside to that is that we're going to lose a lot of residents during redistricting. So I've tried to really make sure that we're being clear about where that line is being drawn. Ocoee south of 50, the line will come down almost to the Windermere line. Then that will go into District 2. That will no longer be District 1. Winter Garden will stay in District 1. Hunters Creek will stay in District 1. So all along the eastern boundary of District 1. And then There'll be changes in the Metro West area, some of the Metro West area, and a little bit of what would be Metro West or Dr. Phillips is going into 6, and areas that actually I had considered Gotha right now in the options that were presented appear to be going into District 6. So during the Board of County Commission meeting, I am going to try to make a point about trying to keep those communities together. Gotha is a community of interest historically, and I know that they don't have any municipal layers of protection or representation. So I'm going to try really hard not to bisect that community. The reason why Gotha looks like it's all in one district, but we sort of know based on people that we know there that it's not, is because the federal government designates areas, census areas, right? So a census designated place is sort of it's an arbitrary line. You know, sometimes they're based on municipal boundaries, but sometimes they're not. And so, you know, people that I know who are Gotha residents are right on that line. So we're going to really make sure to keep an eye on it and try to make the point that it's still going to be a fair and equitable distribution if Gotha all goes into one.
Right. And if you need help looking at the maps, I know some people have asked us to get them, you know, a map that they can really zoom in to look street by street. Please email district1@ocfl.net.
Yeah, it's amazing really when we have someone on the line that can do the GIS, the mapping part of it, and really zoom in. It made me realize exactly where some of those discrepancies were. So we can help walk you through that.
Perfect. All right, so Board of County Commission meeting updates. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can also drop your questions in the chat and we can answer them live. Horizon West Library update. Uh-oh. We're just going a little dark here.
It's
for
a little,
one
yeah,
second,
we got a little romantic. Yes, so if you tuned in to the Board of County Commission meeting, you would have noticed that part of the commission meeting, and this happens periodically for either reappointments or for budget items, the Board of County Commissioners is the governing body for those budget items and for the appointments, even though there is a library board of trustees. So I took the opportunity during our portion of the discussion agenda that we became the Orange County Library Systems body to ask about the Horizon West branch and whether or not there were still delays, because there had been some indication that there was still some delays coming through based on what City of Orlando wanted as a priority. And the Orange County Library System is governed by a board of trustees that are independent. That's not us. And they voted before I even came into office to prioritize the Horizon West branch. I know I've spoken with many of you about this. We have continued to make sure that what they voted on is being honored. And it's gotten a little tricky because the piece of land that they identified as the library board of trustees to use in Horizon West is co-owned by Orlando and Orange County. So it's a 50-50 ownership. And that doesn't dismiss the question I had, which was, well, if you own something 50-50, why are they getting to dictate the terms? And you know, what was really made clear to me at some point was that they were sort of holding up the whole project until they could get their own, the city project resolved. And so I raised it right there on the record. I wanted to make sure it went on the record and public facing so that the minutes reflected my urgency, my sense of urgency. And then also behind the scenes, I requested all of the documents that really show the duties and responsibilities of the county and the city in this co-ownership. Because you know how it is. If you co-own something with somebody, that agreement lays out those terms. And I'd be really surprised if somewhere in that agreement it says the city of Orlando gets to call all the shots. So I'm hoping, you know, we started this a year ago where I was really hoping that sort of goodwill would prevail and that they would be good neighbors and realize that if an independent board voted to make Horizon West a priority, that's what should happen. But I'm still advocating for it because until they break ground, I'm not going to believe it. And I just think I have to stay vigilant on that. And it's disappointing because I really was hoping this would be put to rest by now, but it's not. So we'll keep coming back to you if there's a call to action. You know, my Horizon West folks will tune in and we'll let you know.
Beautiful. All right, so there was 2 updates, one from Jeff Benavides, our Director of Sustainability and Resilience, giving a sustainability update, and one from Kevin Cam, who heads up the UF IFAS Extension Office here in Orange County.
Yes, and I want to start with the first. I want to do them
Yeah,
in
I was
flip
trying
order.
to do a cheat
I know.
bulk up.
Okay, so really quickly, University of Florida, as our land trust university in Florida, gets a certain amount of funding from the state for extension offices. We also, as a county, give some funding for the extension office. If you haven't checked out the programs that they do through Orange County's extension, University of Florida extension, you're missing out, because they have everything from classes on how to manage your budget and get get ahead on your credit score, to how to do a fully
Raise chickens.
Yes, how to do a fully ecologically beneficial backyard.
Right.
That's where our chicken class is, exactly. And there is an unbelievable amount of information. They are also the entity that does, you'll see the periodic tree giveaways from Orange County Parks, and that's them. So to me, the Orange County, the IFAS, University of Florida extension updates could be an entire half a day, because they have so many programs. So I would encourage you to go to their website, check it out. There's something for everyone, and we're going to try to really use all those things more, because my question to them was, what do you feel like is the most underutilized of your programs, and let's grab that and get it out there, because if there's a need, we got to make sure we're putting together the resource for that need, and there's so many resources there.
Right. And then Jeff.
And then we got our sustainability and resiliency plan update, and if you've been following for a little bit longer than the last few months, we voted in as a Orange County board a sustainability and resiliency plan that laid out really how we were going to modify our own operations and then bring those out into the county to be more sustainable, to be more resilient, and to have some lasting impacts on our natural resources and environment. And so it was really amazing to be able to hear from somebody from the sustainability board. There's an advisory board, volunteers who come in and navigate this huge plan, and we'll share the plan, and then give us an update on where they are, because some of those goals seem really pretty easy, right? Like, changing out your light bulbs in the buildings in Orange County, that seems pretty simple. Some of them are really big, difficult tasks.
Localizing our entire food system.
Changing out an entire fleet of public works, diesel engines, right? Like there's some really big, long goals. But within that sustainability plan that we've all agreed to stick with and to really make our goals and to lay out as where we need to be and how to get there, we talk about things like wetland preservation and tree preservation, forest canopy. The Sustainability Advisory Board did a deep dive into the things that we're talking about in our tree ordinance and in our wetland ordinance. So it really helps intersect with the updates, legislative updates that are goals here, and I want to thank them for all the work on that. I did sort of make a point after their presentation to try to and I didn't want to diminish it, right? They've done an amazing amount of work, and I'm really, really grateful and proud of the work they've done. But that there is a competing agendas, and literally in our agenda, that same day, on Tuesday, that we were getting this amazing update and looking at our fertilizer ordinance, there was an agenda item destroying Class 1 wetlands and subsequently paying several $100,000 for mitigation outside of the county. So the area that's having that impact will not, because the mitigation is happening somewhere else, and that's perfectly legal, it doesn't mean it's right, they won't benefit from that. And so what they have now is Class 1 wetlands, which are the highest and best recirculators of oxygen. They're the best carbon sinks, so they cool the entire area. And that community is not going to get that back.
Right.
And that's the part that, for me, we can't lose sight of, is that the communities that are sacrificing something, when we start looking at replacement, are we being equitable in that replacement? Because if we're mitigating in Lake County, how does that help you as an Orange County resident? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And
right. And this wasn't an outside entity trying to apply to destroy wetlands.
No,
this was a county
this was the county. Yeah, this was actually a road project.
Road expansion project,
right,
to cut 2.7 acres worth of headwaters to the Wekiva down to extend a road.
It was a class 1, which means the the
most
most
precious.
quality. And so it was, stuck on our consent agenda, which meant that it was not up for discussion. We didn't get to have a discussion about it. So I felt a little bit, I felt bad to having to bring it up after this wonderful and very optimistic sustainability and resiliency update, because like I said, I feel very grateful for the progress, but you have to be able to draw those comparisons or we're never going to be there, right? It's in what I said that day was we have to take those goals and thread them all the way through every action of the county, because otherwise it's just smoke and mirrors.
Right, because a sustainability and resiliency plan is supposed to be very forward thinking, and if the same thing happens here that happened to Houston, where we destroy all of our wetlands, pave over everything, and then a category 5 like Hurricane Dorian were to just cross straight over Orange County,
We have no protection.
the water has nowhere to go if we've paved them all.
Yeah.
All of the wetlands. So it is resiliency to protect wetlands.
Absolutely, and resiliency in not just that flood mitigation, but also in our the health benefits, right? Like understanding that really at any given time you could walk outside with the right equipment and take a sample of air. And in areas that there are wetlands and healthy wetlands, the quality of the air is going to be dramatically different than the quality of the air somewhere that those have all been scrubbed for roads where we're getting additional emissions and additional, there's no filtration. We talked about the Orlando Wetlands Park. Walking through the forest at the end of that park where there's some really very dense canopy, the smell, the feel of the oxygen, it's different. It's different. And I think, sadly there are children growing up right here in Orange County that have never smelt that have never smelt the woods.
They don't know what a forest is.
That have not walked in the woods. So we're going to stay focused. I'm glad for the sustainability and resiliency plan. We love you, Jeff. But I'm also going to call out our internal processes and where there's those gaps every chance I get in the hopes that we can close that gap.
Right. All right. So I think we are making headway because we had a water supply plan update from our incredible utilities division, which are thinking strategically and long term where we're going to get potable drinking water, but we have to kind of recategorize our water because right now we're just moving water around to make room for development when even stormwater can be a precious resource.
Yeah, and we're not really calling out places that, I think there are times and places that we could make some changes that would really be an instant and immediate change that wouldn't be a burden on residents. And one of those is when we have a development application that comes through, we are not requiring them to add a water reclamation irrigation. It's an option. I think it's like, somewhere in the mix of things that they can do. But to me, it's a very simple and straightforward way to make sure that we're not wasting drinking water on yards. Right. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So like those things, and I love our utilities department because this is a group of brilliant people who can see into the future and say, okay, and they knew 10 years ago, they knew what we would need today, and they're looking 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, 20 years ahead. If you think about some of the worst disasters that have happened in this country when it comes to water supply, it's been where we didn't have the type of brilliance that we have here. But I joke with them that they're almost too efficient. It's almost seamless, that it's it's very inexpensive here to use a lot of groundwater, a lot of good drinking water. And so we need to, and I don't want the citizens to bear that burden. So then we need to look at what goes into a new development and where we can offset some of that and make sure that we've got an abundance of reclaimed water. Where can we use it to its best ability, and where it's not, if it's not treated fully, to where we're putting it somewhere that it's not going straight back into the ground.
Right. And then when we talk about water going into the ground, we have to talk about fertilizer. And so we have an update on the fertilizer ordinance. How many years in the making now?
Yeah, I wasn't around for the 2010 conversations, but I know some people that were. I was around for the 2017, and
right.
At that time, our environmental protection division here in the county was, said what we'll do is we will invest in gathering some data, and then what we'll do is come back, and if the data shows that what we've done so far isn't working, then we can update it. And that's exactly what happened. The data that came back was really clear that the nutrients that were being applied in fertilizer, yard lawn applications, and especially during the rainy season. But overall, too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus was getting in our waterways. And I talked to residents that live on almost every lake out there. West Orange County is covered in beautiful lake systems. And the one thing I hear from all of them is something has changed. Something has changed. The quality of the water has changed. This stuff is growing and it's not supposed to grow this fast. And that's the nutrient load, right? It makes your St. Augustine grass grow fast, but it also makes the invasive weeds grow fast. And so, what happens then is that the beneficial growth that we need to feed our mammals and our other critters that live and work
ecosystems. They're all around us.
It throws off the entire balance. And so this update couldn't have been at a more important time. I was a little bit taken aback by what I perceived to be a complete betrayal of a supposedly independent advisory board. So within Environmental Protection Division, there's an advisory board that gets to review sometimes ordinance updates or cases, and they're called the Environmental Protection Environmental Protection Commission, and they're appointees that come through just like all of our other advisory boards, but they, in complete contradiction to every bit of research that we got from our own investment of data collection, came out saying that commercial applicators should be able to be exempt from this update, which, by the way, takes us right back to where we were, right? That's not really an update. This was all been for naught. And, all it took was a few minutes to look up the different members on the Environmental Protection Commission to realize that every single one of them, well, maybe not, maybe there's one that's not, but every other one either works in an industry that their entire job is to try to figure out how to manipulate and get through the permitting system, or benefit from commercial application, right? So we've got like a landscaping / lawn care representative. We've got, biotech, which if you know anything about John Miklos, and that he had to be actually removed from the water management district because of a conflict of interest. That's his company. And we've got, so literally one of them describes in the companies, like about us, that they help entities that produce fertilizer. I mean, it like says it in the description. I'm like, how can this be an independent advisory board? So, and listen, I do think it's important for people who are in a business to be able to represent that business in an advisory board. But the way advisory boards typically work is then you get a balance, right? Like you get somebody who's also representing the other interests. And then we're able to find some compromise that benefits everybody. There's no balance on this one. It is I couldn't find, the day of the Board of County Commissioners meetings, when we're talking about the fertilizer ordinance, we had representatives from every great environmental conservation group and environmental NGO, non-government entity, standing up and saying, look, this is happening all over the state. People have to make some big changes, because if you look at the places where we haven't, they've had severe environmental impacts. We've had, the scientists that are involved in our other commissions from University of Central Florida, University of Florida, that have said this is a very reasonable approach in this ordinance. And in contradiction to that, our very own supposed independent advisory boards like, no, we should let the applicators do what they want. They have to be certified. Well, a certification is nothing more than like you go online, do a little checklist thing, right? And then they, give you a sticker and you can go out and do whatever you want. If truly they knew what they were doing and they were experts and there was, they really had, I think, some discretion to know that they were doing damage in the summertime or that they were over applying, we wouldn't have gotten here.
Right.
If they had self-policed their industry, we wouldn't be here.
Right, and I mean, they try to also, there's multiple factors. I have to say, there probably are very responsible applicators who do take that stuff seriously, but they also were trying to, in the conversation, point the finger at septic and point the finger at the individual homeowner for applying in the rainy months, because we're exempt at the state from being able to limit retailers selling these 50-pound bags of nitrogen-based fertilizers.
And that's right.
But that's all right. It's just, it's all right.
It's all right, yeah. It doesn't mean, it's like...
Right, Dr. Katz
said...
you know, if your house is on fire, you can't just say, well, we need to put out the fire on this side of the house and totally ignore the fire on this side of the house.
And that's exactly right. If you look at the sources, and this is what I thought was also very interesting, is they were able to look at, you know, the ions and figure out that the source of the pollution to try to identify for the study that we used to base this on, whether or not it was from effluent or from human sewage, whether it was from, you know, some kind of leaching, because those look different under a microscope. Like they can actually tell where it's from, and
the
it
one
wasn't.
thing I didn't fail in chemistry was those isotope-like studies where you can differentiate.
You can actually differentiate, and it was really
bases.
clear. And you know, I think for their argument about the individual appliers, right, the do-it-yourselfers, they're exactly right. We don't have the ability, because the state preempted us, to pull it off the shelves in Ace Hardware or in Lowe's. But what we are allowed to do, and this was in that ordinance, is to educate at that site. So we literally, as part of the ordinance, have a new piece of education material that's going to go up right by where the do-it-yourselfers get their fertilizer, so they can see and understand what the potential harms are. And that education component's on us. We're going to continue to take as many opportunities as we can to get out and talk to people in our area about, you know, just give the fertilizer a summer vacation. That's what I think the easiest way to think of it is like that summertime when there's plenty of sun and then rain in the afternoon. Your yard doesn't need it, because if you put it down, it rushes right off anyway. And yes, there were really, it's in all fairness, there were applicators that came out to not Tuesday's meeting, but the stakeholder meeting that said, I don't put nitrogen and phosphorus on in the summertime. You don't want to do that, because it weakens the root system. So what we really need to do, and she knew the science of it and said it's a different formula. Well, ideally, when we get, you know, commercial entities into the habit of understanding those seasonal differences, maybe we round back and say it doesn't have to be a complete blackout in the summer, but it can be this is the only thing you can apply. But right now, we have no way to enforce that. So the only way to enforce or to really make a change is to say no application in the summertime, so that when you're driving by and you see somebody out spraying, you don't have to try to guess what's in their tank.
Right. So the good news is now there's a 3-pound maximum annual allotment of putting fertilizer down, which every single time they go out, they usually put about a pound. So that's 3 trips as opposed to 4 trips, which used to be the max. I think we could have had 2 pounds, but
I tried to argue for 2 just because, you know, I think we're behind, right? So some of the other jurisdictions that are at 3 or 4 even started trying to modify some of the other application processes 10 years ago, and we didn't get there. And so for me, in any place that we can try to make up that ground, you know, I try to do it.
Right, and then we also have a 25-foot buffer around water bodies, which I think is really, in comparison to other counties across the state, really good.
And especially in our state where or in our county, where we have so many beautiful surface waters that we are worried about. So that 25-foot buffer is something that, you know, hopefully in, you know, our Butler chain and the Johns Lake, where you're seeing some of these really recent algae blooms, we're hoping that there's going to be a pretty quick turnaround.
Right, and then of course what we were all mostly pushing for, which was a strict rainy season ban starting June 1st, which is great.
So help us get the word out, okay?
Help us get the word out.
Yeah, and if you are a do-it-yourselfer and you want some expert at at EPD to help you through, they will. They are really good about it, and they're trying to get the education out, but they're scientists, and they, you know, so they're trying to figure out how to make sure it's understandable and easy. So the easiest way for me to figure it out, because I'm not an environmental scientist, but I really admire them and like to listen to them, is that I give the fertilizer a break over the summertime. And when we start getting in those afternoon rains, I am done. And, you know, we can talk about it again when they kind of taper off.
Right, because lightning and storms put nitrogen into the air, and plants can absorb it through their leaves. So anyway, really wanted to say thank you to everyone who came out and spoke. Even the applicators, I know that it got a little frustrating there, but I love when people come out and make their time to engage with civics. And then also, I love all the people that came out and said, yeah, I'm an applicator, but I love water quality too, and we can work with you. We can, you know, so there was some reception on that side. But then thank you also to Sierra Club and all of the individuals who came out and said something's wrong and we really, really need help.
Yeah, I was really blown away. I think there was somebody who was opposed to the ordinance said something about, activists being there. But, sitting there were just, yes, there were some environmental groups represented, but there were a lot of just residents that said, I've been here my whole life and something is different. And
Right.
these were people in their 60s and 70s that are really afraid that they're not going to have anything to leave their grandkids if we don't turn around the way we're treating our water bodies. So I want to thank everybody that was there that day. I agree. I love the civic dialogue. I love coming to a solution that is, that we can say was the best for the public and for all, everyone involved. So thank you for participating in that.
Awesome. So I have to push her out the door.
We'll see you
So
out
just
in Dr. Phillips.
the last thing that I just want to say is that the proposed West Bus Transport Compound meeting is February 16th at 6 p.m. Then we also have some emergency rental assistance programs coming up on the 17th, and then another one on the 22nd of the following month. We have the Discovery Church rezoning meeting coming up on February 17th as well, which will be at 6 p.m. And we have the Selnick property rezoning, which will be February 23rd.
And that one, Selnick, is code for the one across from Windermere High School.
Windermere High School.
Yeah, so that is something that I know that people have been reaching back out, like what's the next step? The next step is the next meeting, because we requested another public engagement once they had sort of a better conceptual plan. So we'll be able to take a close look at that.
And that's all.
I will see you out there.
Thank you. We'll see you later today. Have a wonderful afternoon.